Hi everybody, this is Adina, and this is my presentation on approaches to emergency management and public safety. I'm first going to talk about the reviews of the books in the podcast. The first one is Management of Public Safety, and that is from our book by Rose. The first section talks about the different services from police, fire departments, and paramedics, and kind of the history of them and how they have evolved through the years. And then it goes into all communities should have an emergency response plan and how to deal with natural disasters to other kinds of disasters, from chemical to crashes and anything else. Then it kind of goes into talking about administrative stuff and laws and court cases that play roles in how personnel are treated and what they can do, just so nobody's discriminated against, or kind of all that stuff, and there's fair pay, and yeah. Administrators must also allocate personnel, assess resources and deployment levels in disasters, just making sure that people are safe and there's enough people in one area to help and there's enough resources and everything, or they have to get more or take people out, and depending on the situation. They also must be aware of intergovernmental agreements, unions, budget concerns, special problems, public feedback, and kind of dealing with the drug epidemic are the next couple of sections in the book, and it just talks about how all those things can affect administrative stuff and how they deal with those topics and how they affect plans and everything. And then it goes into changing technology from computers and phones that have improved communication response times, especially for police, because they can get to places quicker and respond faster and kind of know how many people to send to an area. And then plans should be constantly improving in the procedures so that you're with the times, and yeah. The next reading was Disasters and Emergency Management Systems in Urban Areas. This kind of first talked about governments and emergency management and how intergovernmental people come together and talk about emergency plans and come to like a common goal of what the kind of safety plan has to be, kind of solving the complex problems. They talked a lot about collaborations between various groups, from government to state and people in the community and services and stuff. There are FRP, NRP, and NRF documents stating specific standards for state and local government to follow for emergency plans, so that they kind of have a guideline of what to use when they're coming up with plans and making sure they're doing things correctly. It uses Orlando as an example and its plan in a disaster and how it's improved, and just how it works and everything. The next reading is Improving Emergency Service in Rural Areas, a bi-objective covering of local model for EMS systems by these three ladies. It was a case study on how to improve emergency services in rural areas. They wanted to improve coverage and response times. They had 3 objective kind of goals, and that was distance of zones and stations, minimizing uncovered rural areas, demand zones, and uncovered demand zones. They used 2 different DIV model methods, the bi-objective covering location model, and E-constraints method, which both had equations that different variables were put into to come out with different results on kind of the ranges and response times and coverage of everything, and how those would be affected by changing different things or adding different things to them. And in the end result, the best way was to improving the metrics was to increase the number of ambulances in rural areas, so there was backup coverage and more ambulances going out to different emergencies. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the podcast, and that was responding to Hurricane Irma. This kind of just talked about their experience in the hurricane and what they did and everything. But the first thing they talked about was how the community was prepared for the hurricane, from beginning communication with school districts and sheriff officers and others, so that they had proper shelter and evacuation going on, and making sure they had other plans in place for rescues and damages and everything that was going to happen, and the kind of the path that the hurricane took. They learned a lot in the process. They learned new things and how they can make their plan better, improving it from things that they did during the process and how to better their plan. They had a damage assessment team and a rescue team that were ready to rescue people and assess the damages of areas. And they just kind of helped people kind of assess the damages of areas and rescue them from areas, and how they worked together to get to people. They communicated with smaller towns around them to make sure they were okay and had the proper needs. There was social media communication, which could allow people to know what was happening and where they should go, since the hurricane was moving up. And it just kind of gave them more details about stuff. It also led them to the website where they could get more information on everything as well. And then for the people who didn't have social media, they also used a newspaper communication to update people also. They were also reporting damages in certain areas and whatnot, and they were able to create an app where citizens could report damage as well, other than just service people. So what I got from all these readings were that it takes many people to work together to have an effective disaster plan. Administrators and local officials must stay on top of communication with different services and people in the community to make sure everything goes as planned and all that stuff. And governments was an important topic because of how they work together and make emergency plans and kind of make places safer. The definition of governments is a multi-level network of inter-organizational relationships directed toward a common goal in a context of emergency management. They want to make sure that kind of people are safe and plans are working correctly. Every place must practice and improve their plans over time, because things are constantly changing and can need to improve with the time so that you're ready for disasters in better ways. And then also ministers must be prepared to run the situations. They have to stay calm and have to plan in action because things are changing rapidly. They should have backup plans and know changes in laws and know how to handle stuff under pressure and stay communicating with everybody. Major questions that I had from all this was with the ambulances, even with increases at each station, how could this improve time in rural places that are still far away from one another? Response times are roughly between 19 and 14 minutes depending on urban or rural areas. I wanted to know what like the survival rate for critical patients would be if they're still far away from a care place, even if there's more ambulances ready around areas. And then I just kind of want to know how governments works more. I kind of know the definition and how it's directed towards a common goal of emergency management, but how do the government and like those officials communicate and make effective plans for different regions of the country? I wonder if they have like general guidelines that they follow and then break them up for specific regions. And yeah, the questions that I came up with were being in the Hurricane Irma situation as an administrator, how would you handle the changing situations? How would you use this experience to improve disaster plans for the future? And then the second question was, collaboration and communication are important factors in emergency. After reading the chapters and readings, how does intergovernance work together in public safety and improving disasters? And that is it.